The day of December, and tonight we delve into all the stories that are making headlines, and later on we talk about the importance of mental health in the workplace. But first, let's take a look at the highlights.
Tonight, Taita Taveta, Migori and Meru lead in the list of counties worst affected by the ongoing flood crisis as the country scrambles to deal with the deluge. Also tonight, dismay as the government admits to going through a cash crunch, with salaries proving to be an uphill task.
I can tell you, we are even having trouble with salaries. We are clearing salaries with arrears.
And weeks after the release of the results of the last ever KCPE exam, uncertainty still reigns over the credibility of the results.
The government was advised that the Mombasa Road-based company did not have the capacity to print the exams and also ensure its security and integrity.
Welcome once again. Our sign language interpreter for the night is Rhoda Nyamai. Now, to start us off, Azimio leader Raila Odinga asserts that the discrepancies observed in the 2023 KCPE results are as a result of fraudulent activities that infiltrated the entire process, spanning from the preparation to the publication of the examination papers. Now, Odinga claims that the tender for printing of the examination material was awarded to a company ill-suited for the task, allegedly as form favoritism towards that particular company. Now, the Ministry of Education has, however, refuted the claims, saying it met all thresholds to ensure credible examinations. And as Andreen Kilemi now reports, Odinga has called for the formation of a task force to unmask malpractices in the 2023 KCPE exams.
The 2023 KCPE outcome is increasingly sparking controversy, with Azimio leader Raila Odinga now leveling accusations against the government, alleging its involvement in fraudulent activities.
That the mess in KCPE started as a tender war, pitting various senior officials in the Ministry of Education.
Odinga asserts that the government awarded the printing tender for the exam papers to a company lacking necessary qualifications for the task, after which, according to Odinga, the said company was forced to subcontract another entity to fulfill the printing of examination papers.
The government was advised that the Mombasa Road-based company did not have the capacity to print the exams and also ensure its security and integrity, especially on such a short notice.
Appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Education, Basic Education PS Belio Kipsang and NEC CEO David Njegere affirmed that the Ministry of Education adhered to all standards for quality assurance of examinations. They observed that the error was attributed to issues to do with SMS service providers.
That is the same message we release, that you may check on the SMS or you can go to the school portal. Sometimes people, because they are in a hurry, they want to look at it very quickly. They find it faster and convenient to go to the SMS. But there is an option, you can go to the school portal without any charge.
The Kenya National Examination Council is working around rectifying at least 2,000 errors in this year's final KCPE exam. Andreen Kilemi, TV 47.
Thank you, Andreen Kilemi, for that report. Now, the death toll as a result of the floods being witnessed in the country has risen to 165, with over 500,000 persons being displaced thus far. And as our reporter Grace Kuria Kanja now tells us, the government has mapped out the counties worst affected, being Taita Taveta, Migori and Meru, with Lamu and Tana River counties likely to join the worst affected counties. Lamu and Tana River counties are likely to join the worst affected counties.
5 more people have lost their lives in the past 24 hours raising the death toll from the floods to 165. With more than 107,000 households, comprising of approximately more than 500,000 persons being displaced thus far. According to the National El Niño Emergency and Disaster Response Command Center, Taita Taveta, Migori and Meru counties are the worst affected counties due to the floods, with Lamu and Tana River counties likely to join the list of worst affected. On the back of that, North Kadem MCA Samson Obonyo is calling on the national government to declare the floods crisis in Nyatike, Migori County, as a disaster and provide the necessary support to the affected victims.
All the rains from Kisii, Migori, all of them end up at the lake through River Migori and through River Kuja. As it is, in fact, all those rivers have burst their banks, and they are pouring water into homes. So far, I've received report that over 700 households have been so far displaced by the waters.
In Tana River County, more villages have been submerged while others are completely cut off downstream in the delta following the increased water levels. Kenya Red Cross Society Regional Manager Hassan Musa said a team has been dispatched to evacuate those who are marooned in Kau, Ozi and other villages to ensure they are at safer grounds.
Japo maji katika barabara ya Garisen Lamu yameanza kupungua, lakini maji haya sasa yameelekea sehemu za chini ambayo ni hizo sehemu za Kau. Kwa hiyo tunaomba watu waweze kutoka.
To Lamu County now, where government spokesperson Isaac Maora has pitched tent and where floods have wreaked havoc on vital infrastructure, destroying 4 roads, 382 acres of farm, 23 homesteads, 3 bridges, 3 schools and a chief's office. A total of 1,770 acres of farmlands have been submerged in Hindi Ward, 2,100 acres of cropland destroyed in Bahari Ward, 5,400 acres of cropland destroyed in Mkunumbi, while 495 acres have been destroyed in Basuba Ward. Grace Kuriakanja, TV 47.
Right, now the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Climate Change, Simon Steele, maintains that the world can only overcome the climate crisis by ditching business as usual. Speaking at the Conference of Parties, COP28, that is currently underway in Dubai, Simon Steele said that all governments must give their negotiators clear marching orders. At Sharm el-Sheikh, he called on the world to do things differently. However, over the last year, on loss and damage, he opens that the world has opted for an innovative approach, a transitional committee, which drove forward progress much faster. Now, finance is the great enabler for climate action. The negotiations must put it front and center. He argues that 8 billion people are on the front lines, but right now, only 50 countries have national adaptation plans.
Now, all governments must give their negotiators clear marching orders. We need highest ambition, not point scoring or lowest common denominator politics. The global stocktake is the vehicle to get climate action on track. Finance is the great enabler for climate action. The negotiations must put it front and center. Loss and damage was a win, but we're kidding ourselves if we think it's a tick in the box for finance and support at this COP. More is required. We need enhanced transparency and to deliver our promise to fund climate action across the world.
As you ruminate on the progress of COP28 tonight, the national government is facing a cash crunch crisis that has crippled the entire public service due to delay in payment of salaries and the disbursement of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, causing an uproar in Parliament. Now, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndung'u told MPs the recent drought and the ongoing El Niño rains have eaten up a huge chunk of the budget amid reduced revenues, leaving the government with empty coffers. Apollo Kamau reports on the liquidity crisis that saw senators storm out of the chambers due to delay in staff salaries.
Share the truth, say kimeumana.
Under pressure from MPs over the delayed disbursement of the National Government Constituency Development Funds, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndung'u dropped a bombshell when he admitted that the government is broke and facing a serious cash crunch that has seen the government struggle to pay salaries.
When I CS, I have known you as a honest and a truthful man. Please share the truth before time catches up with you. Share the truth. Say, kimeumana. Give me time, kidogo. You will be able to sort out the problem.
I can tell you, we are even having trouble with salaries. We are clearing salaries with arrears. Okay? You know, just imagine that. The first thing we can do, and you are familiar with this story, is that we cannot default on external debt because our credibility is going to be ruined. It takes the first charge.
Order, honorable senators.
The government's cash crunch crisis that now threatens to cripple the entire public service also reared its ugly head in the Senate, where senators walked out of the chambers in protest over delayed salaries for parliamentary staff in the last 2 months.
Now, 2 months going, we need about 674 million in both houses and just about 80 million for the Senate. Now, Mr. Speaker, last month, our staffers went without money. I'm aware that the disbursement for October to date has not been done. I'm aware that the Senate oversight has been processed. It's lying in Treasury. Honorable senators, let us proceed with the business of the day. I will take it up. I will take it up as your Speaker.
The National Treasury owes MPs through the NGCDF a debt of 54 billion shillings. Salaries for parliamentary staff in the last 2 months amounting to 674 million shillings. Both of these key reasons why the Finance Committee pushed the CS to come clean on the country's public coffers after Tuesday's walkout by MPs from the chambers, threatening to paralyze government business.
If we go without any CDF money, we are just going to plunge ourselves into a burning fire.
I was even called by the governor in Nairobi County telling me that, look, I'm going to be impeached. What are we going to do? I have not given salaries. You can imagine it's a liquidity issue which is short term, but we are going to get there. We are going to get there very soon.
The CS, who pleaded for more time to sort the delayed disbursement, said the government is in a tight fiscal fix due to the recent drought and the ongoing El Nino rains, amid reduced revenues and debt obligations that have to be met, among them the 305 billion shillings Eurobond, which is due in June, and for which the government has committed to pay 45.8 billion shillings this month. Still, MPs questioned CS Ndung'u on why the country is facing a cash crunch, yet in 1 week alone, President William Ruto has made expensive trips to COP28 in Dubai and India. The much-awaited disbursement of NGCDF funds has had MPs on tenterhooks due to pressure from their constituencies amid realities of the moment that the government is broke. Apul Kamau, TV47 from Parliament Buildings.
Thank you, Apollo Kamau. Kimeumana indeed. Youth Affairs CS Ababu Namwamba has lauded the partnership with social media platform TikTok, saying it is going to benefit the youth who are using the application to market their businesses. In a bid to encourage monetization, Fortune Sibanda, who is TikTok's Director for Government Relations in Sub-Saharan Africa, says the partnership will include creating awareness on available parental controls and community guidelines. Now, the event that was attended by various leaders and online sensations comes barely a week to the Youth Connect Africa Summit that aims to encourage innovation and economic development of the youth. Barriers of any kind notwithstanding, medium and small enterprises will benefit from the partnership, saying it will address challenges, reduce poverty, and empower entrepreneurs.
Through this partnership, we are committing funding to the amount of $1.5 million to social businesses here in Kenya to help them grow and promote their businesses online.
Monetization is right at the heart of the partnership with TikTok. And because we believe that as we grapple with the challenge of unemployment and providing sustainable livelihoods for our young people, we see this space of content creation as holding immense promise.
So a company can come on TikTok, use me as a creator to maybe create awareness about maybe their product, their services. So it's a really good platform, or it's a really good opportunity that TikTok has offered businesses and creators as well.
Moving on, 3.9 billion shillings has been allocated by the government for the construction of approximately 16,000 classrooms, which are expected to cater for JSS students in the country. This happens after the National Teachers Association, NUT, suggested the government to increase the financial allocation allocated for the construction of classrooms. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, speaking in the annual delegates meeting of teachers, assured the commitment of the government to improve the interest of teachers in the country, while noting that over 56,000 teachers have been employed so far within a year.
Thank you so much. One little time.
We are committed to bridging the over 111,000 teachers deficit in the next few years because we want to spur skill-centered sustainable development. This is because we appreciate the fact that achieving the recommended ratio reduces the burden on teachers, directly improving quality.
In the spirit of advancing social justice, I call upon the NAT leadership to pursue capacity building of its members to ensure that they are not left behind with the current changes in the economy and the trends in the world of work as the recent technological advancement.
A record 56,000 teachers within a year. We want to appreciate. The Presidential Working Party, Your Excellency, was wonderfully selected by His Excellency the President. And we all and sundry want to accept the fact that it was a team of eminent educationists.
Let's move on to Lamu County, where panic has engulfed Poromo village in Lamu West Sub-County after one person was brutally killed by people suspected to be Al-Shabaab militants last night. Police officers have already launched an investigation into the incident while asking residents to be vigilant and provide any information that will be useful for their investigations. Micah Gongo reports.
According to eyewitnesses, the attackers launched the attack around 1 a.m. Wednesday and kidnapped the victim, whose body was found in the wee hours of Wednesday morning.
Kuanza kusikia milio ya marisasi na pande hii. Leo asubuhi ndio tumekuja tukakuta mbuzi 10 na kuku 6 na mzee naye amechinjwa.
Sisi tuko na MCA. Tuko na mudhama, tuko na governor, kwani wako wapi? Kwani miaka 5 ikiisha ndio wanajua tuko wapi?
The horrific incident also involved slaughtering of several goats and chicken belonging to the victim, adding the distress to the community. Area residents lament of a spike in insecurity in the recent past, a situation that has left children without their fathers, whom have been the target of the attackers.
Gavana ndiye baba yetu, hawezi kuongea. Hawezi kunyia jambo lolote, hapa vita inaendelea. So hii mambo mimi nasema serikali inajua kile kinakula kingine. Na ni sababu hii mashamba.
Sisi tumeishi kuuliwa. Majirani zetu pale hapa Salama, hapa Poromoko, Juhudi huko tumekufa sisi wanaume. Kila mboma za hii iko na kamburi, 2 kwingine 3.
Hao watu kwa kifupi tuseme wanaonekana si watu wa mbali.
Police officers have, however, launched an investigation into the incident and asked residents to remain alert and cooperate with ongoing efforts to identify the main culprits. Mike Kagwango, TV 47.
Thank you, Mike Agongo. 2023 Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC, more commonly known as COP28, enters sixth day today. Matters agroecology took center stage even as farming experts maintain that the world is food insecure. According to FAO, our reporter Wanji Sostin visited Samuel Nderitu, a farmer who practices organic farming in Thika constituency, Kiambu County, and filed the following report.
According to Sam Nderitu, the founder of Global Intensive Agriculture Center of Kenya, organic farming practices ensures that the soil fertility is maintained and enriched.
Regenerative.
He affirms that going organic is the most sustainable way of farming because it entails use of resources that the farmers could easily access.
It entails improving the soils using the resources that the farmer has. It is called a closed-loop system because it recycles within the farm, and the farmer is supposed to recycle everything that they produce.
Nderitu says that the concept offers healthy and safe food and plays a role in mitigating against the effects of climate change because pesticides and other inputs with residual effects to the environment are not applied, urging farmers to embrace organic farming system to realize maximum yields from their smallholder acreages to promote biodiversity and sustaining the fertility of the soil.
One of the benefits of going organic is that, of course, climate change will have beaten climate change because one of the thing that contributes to climate change is agricultural activities, and that is man-made. It is human activities.
2023 Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC, more commonly known as COP28, will be of no importance if the meeting does not discuss matters agroecology and supporting of farmers to go organic way.
If they don't talk about agroecology in the COP28, then there is no COP. There's no COP. Because agroecology is now and it's tomorrow and the future. So it has to be discussed and discussed fully, and farmers should be supported.
Emmanuel Atamba, the founder and CEO of Upseed Consulting Firm that provides consultant services in food and farming systems in Kenya, says that it is the most critical for the country to open candid conversation on agroecology to transform the food systems.
It's a conversation that is not just about farmers, it's not just about producers doing different, but it's about all of us as a people changing the way we perceive food, changing the way we perceive agriculture.
Shockingly, according to World Food Organization FAO, still more than 750 people globally are food insecure, and this is a clear indicator that conversation for alternative approaches to the problem is required to turn around the trend.
According to FAO, still more than 750 million people globally are affected by food insecurity. And this is a clear indicator of failure of the current system to achieve.
Several small-scale farmers in Bungoma County have embraced the organic way, saying that they are now applying the method on degraded lands, especially in schools. Karen Samkoya is the coordinator for SCOPE organization in East and Central Africa.
We encourage young children in schools to actually love agriculture and not look at it like a punishment.
Wanji Sostin, TV 47.
Bokashi.
Now on to the wonderful world of business. Kenya will collaborate with India in the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector to ensure the country has access to affordable medical supplies to realize the universal healthcare coverage dream. This as President William Ruto bags 38 billion shillings in loans from the Asian country to boost agriculture as he rallies investors to take up manufacturing, especially in renewable energy, to solidify Kenya as Africa's leading green industrial hub.
We have affirmed
that West Kenya and India enjoy a proud history of successful friendship. What we can achieve in the future, given our shared values as well as our shared commitment, is far greater and will endure for the benefit of generations now and generations to come. I had a robust conversation with the government of India today, and I am very, very proud of the outcome of the consultations.
In the world of stocks, the market sustained their bear runs this week after a two-week bullish trend, as signaled by the benchmark indices. Aside from the exchange rate depreciation ballooning fiscal debt denominated in foreign currency, the Monetary Policy Committee noted that the exchange rate depreciation continues to pile pressure on domestic prices.
We looked at Islamic finance and how it differs from Islamic investment banking. So what are the products of Islamic investment banking, and how do these products align with the capital markets sukuk bond?
With Mansa X Sharia, you'll be able to invest your funds and be able to generate a very decent return, which is mostly, above the average inflation rate in the country. We also offer to our clients equities in terms of allowing them or helping them get access to Sharia compliant or halal stocks. So what we're also now bringing on the table is bringing closer the dealings in terms of sukuks, which is an alternative to what the government bonds and the corporate bonds actually are doing. And the sukuks can be sovereign bonds issued by governments, and also could be corporate sukuks, which are issued by institutions or corporates.
Cracks in the bear markets resurfaced with the benchmark indices breaking the two-week relief rally. The Nairobi Securities Exchange 20, 25 and 10 share indices retreated 1.0%, 0.8% and 0.5% week over week, respectively. Now, the Nairobi Securities Exchange all-share index remained unchanged from last week's levels. Safaricom doubled up as the week's best-performing top mover and top-traded counter, gaining 2.6% week over week to close at an 8-week high of 14.05 Kenya shillings. Olympia Capital Holdings was the leading gainer of the week, while Flame Tea Group was the leading loser. In the foreign exchange market, the shilling continued its slide against the dollar, ceding an additional 42 cents on inability to square out the demand and supply mismatches. Even then, the US dollar index weakened by 0.3% against a basket of currencies during the week ending 30th November 2023. The shilling also lost against all the other relevant currencies, but gained 0.5% against the Ugandan shilling. Now that is all we had in the world of stocks. Here in TV47, I am Natasha Wairimu.
Now let's get sporty. GSU Handball Club registered a 37-25 win against Evergreen in the ongoing East and Central Africa Handball Club Championship at the Nyayo Stadium. GSU dominated the match, taking a 17-10 lead into the interval before wrapping up the win. Meanwhile, Gishumbi Rwanda stunned Kenya Defence Forces 37-32 as Nairobi Water settled for a 37-37 draw against Nkaja from Sudan. Right. Tennis Kenya, Karen Country Club and the International Tennis Federation have partnered to host two ITF Women's World Tennis Tour W25 events with ITF World Ranking points at Karen Club and Nairobi Club. The tournament is scheduled to take place from 8th to 23rd December 2023. Currently, 45 players and 10 coaches from 34 countries, including Kenya, Ukraine, USA, Australia, China, Sweden, Slovakia, and Spain, among others, have confirmed participation. The event will start with the qualifiers at Current Club on Sunday, 10th December, and main draw will be at the same venue on Monday, 11th December 2023. Now 6 Kenyans will be participating, including Kenyan star player and Wimbledon doubles champion Angela Okutoi. Now, a section of Pokot Member of Parliament have criticized the Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen tournament, saying the tournament does not fit its objective of bringing peace into the country. Now, the leaders have also spoken on the importance of collaboration. Let's take a look.
Even if Onesmus Murkomen had goodwill to this county in terms of peace, why is the game being played in Makutano, where we don't have issues of insecurity? The game should be taken to the border, where now we can talk about issues of peace, and the people who are affected will listen to us after playing the games.
Kama hii mpira itaendelea, ambapo tunasema haitaendelea ambapo tupate security kamili, kwa sababu wale watu ambao wana security wanaweza kucheza namna gani na majirani zao. Kama itaendelea wakati tumesikizana, hii mpira itaendelea kwa hizo corridors ambapo Wapokot na Wamarket watachumuika, na iendelee kwa mwezi moja. Na kama tuna kiwanja, hizo viwanja zitengenezwe saizi, ndio sasa wakati tunakubaliana kwa mchezo iendelee, isiendelee hapa Makutano, iendelee kule Chesekon, iende pale Tekit.
Hii kinyang'anyiro ya mchezo inaitwa Kipchumba Murkomen Cup. Vile tulisema wiki jana, bado inasimama hivyo. Kuwa hiyo tournament kama wabunge wa Pokot, bado tunasimama kuwa hiyo tournament haiendelei.
And with that story, we go for a very short break, but when we come back, we talk about mental health at the workplace. Don't touch that dial.
To the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, the premier events venue. Our state-of-the-art facilities are designed to meet all your needs, from large-scale conferences to intimate meetings and everything in between. Located in the heart of Thika, the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center offers stunning views of the city skyline and is easily accessible from all major transportation hubs. Our facility features ample parking, free Wi-Fi, advanced audiovisual equipment, and our technical team is always on hand to ensure your event runs smoothly and seamlessly. Don't take our word for it. Make your next event unforgettable at the Mwai Kibaki Convention Center. Contact us today for bookings and reservations. Email multimedia@mku.ac.ke or call us on 0708 212204 or 0727 441733 or 0721 438 629 to learn more about our services and book your event.
This is the epitome of dreams and aspirations. We believe in growing small-scale industries to become household names through innovation and linkages.
I have never been employed in my life. I started small back in the university.
Excuse me? I own a degree, yeah? I'm a human resource manager.
Watch the inspiring documentary of Mount Kenya University on TV47. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
Doors should not hold out opportunities. Doors are the gateways to progress. Ones that hold the key to equality. Let's take doors to places where there are none. Let's open big doors and small ones.
KCB ni yetu.
KCB is mine.
KCB ni yangu. KCB ni yetu. For people, for better.
Every day, Kenyans face countless hurdles.
families struggling to put food on the table, children fighting malnutrition, and communities in need of quality healthcare. In a world where a small gesture can have an enormous impact, TV and Radio 47 invite you to be part of something incredible. Introducing Tenda Wema. With just 1 shilling and 50 cents daily, taken from your airtime or data, you can be the light of change. Dial star 354 star 47 hash and witness your compassion in action. Every shilling you contribute directly empowers education, healthcare, and community progress. Your 1 shilling and 50 cents might seem like a drop in the ocean, but imagine the ripples it creates. Better access to education, improved healthcare, and a safer environment for all. Remember, every shilling is a building block. Every contribution a step towards progress. Let's ignite Mimini Sisi into a legacy of change. Let's sculpt a better tomorrow for Kenya. Dial star 354 star 47 hash to subscribe today. Tenda Wema with TV and Radio 47.
Karibu Maybets. New customers are rewarded a free bet worth 50 shillings. To register, SMS the word JOIN to 29098. Join now at maybet.com.
Welcome back to the Daily Report and welcome to the marketplace. Tonight we're going to be talking about the importance of mental health in the workplace. We're always talking about profits here at the marketplace. The day is coming to an end. What about mental health? Already in studio we have Warimi Karingi, who is going to be telling us about mental health. She's a mental health advocate. And we have Paul Kasimu, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Safaricom. Let me start with you, Paul. If you could just tell us, Safaricom was recently named the second best employer right after ABSA South Africa. How did you achieve that?
So Forbes normally did a very anonymous survey.
Right.
And what they were looking at is 4 areas.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at workplace, they looked at growth opportunities, they looked at diversity, equity and inclusion, right. And there was also an element of how do you just create a thriving environment.
Right.
So it's about overall employee feelings. And there was one question that came through, which was,
right.
Would you recommend your company to a family member or a friend? 170,000 employees were or participated in the survey, right. 50 countries, 1,700 employers. Mm-hmm. So coming number 3 in Africa was a very humbling experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've named a couple of things. One would say that maybe these are perks that people get at work, but they're, the bare necessities that people should be having. When it comes to other companies, do you feel like they should emulate you as the Chief Human Resource Officer?
I mean, that would be a very wrong thing to say because everybody is doing something right.
Right.
It's a case of what works for that company. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say pick and adapt.
Right.
Do what is right for you.
Right.
Normally I say there is no HR strategy.
Right.
The business strategy is about people
right.
and organization. Mm-hmm. And once you do that, then everything falls in place.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Wariemi, the pick and adapt culture. This is a new term that we're going to be looking into. Mm-hmm. How is it that the Kenyan workplace, the Kenyan work environment has, this sort of punitive regime going on?
Yeah. Okay. Well, now maybe I can begin by saying that right now I'm running my own organization.
All right.
And I started the mental health organization based on my own experience because I suffer from depression and anxiety disorder. Mm-hmm. It's been there since 2015.
Right.
But one of the things that I can say, I was in a very high pressure organization. Mm-hmm. It was an American firm who was selling IT products. Our targets were in millions of dollars, and the environment was like just crazy. And then what happened was that after I now felt sick, and seeing, I feel for me, I was kind of lucky to be in an environment where my managers started kind of understanding and giving me that kind of leeway. And you can imagine this was all the way in 2015. People, mental health was not such a big thing. But yeah, I guess for me, what I can say in terms of experience in our workplace, I must say it was, I saw management trying their best to do what they can for me.
Right.
But then now the unfortunate thing is, now it was the employees.
Who were not supportive.
Who were not supportive, and there were stories and all that stuff. So I think it's workplace, getting workplace and mental health together is, I believe, can be quite the task, you know, because you're dealing with different individuals. But basically, me speaking from my own experience, I did have very good employers.
Right.
They gave me time off. I was out for 10 months.
Right.
Yeah, and I went back to work. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. But when I talk about workplace, and I think that's why even I was called in for this interview, it's because for me, I had a very good experience
Of course.
from management, which is now the people who I want to speak to and tell them, look, you need to do this for your staff,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then now we deal with the other dynamics of the people, yeah.
Yes, a lot of Kenyans watching this, and there's, of course, this notion that goes around of how it's really important, or of how there are perks when you're working with multinationals or, you know, companies that are run by people who are not necessarily Kenyan. Do you feel like this maybe had a tangent to your personal experience?
Yes, it definitely did, and also because of the policies that they're put into place.
Of course.
So medical leave was a whole year. So that's basically what was happening. Like, medical leave was a whole year. So as you're saying, that thing of like having some of these international companies definitely plays a very big role.
Right.
I've also interacted with people who have just worked for just Kenyan companies.
Right.
And even as recently as maybe 2 weeks ago, I have a friend who got fired because of having anxiety.
Right.
Yes, and she explained to the HR, she explained to her manager that I suffer from this thing, but then they just said, we can't work with you, and they let her go. Right. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done in the workplace, because it's one of the main sources of stress to everyone, you know?
Right.
I mean, if you talk to people, they're like, work is so hard, work is so stressful, work is this, so that.
Yes.
And then I think also, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, and maybe you can help us with this,
right?
Like how to find that kind of like balance.
Right.
Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Now, maybe before maybe we continue the interview.
Right.
One of the things that, as I mentioned, the depression and the anxiety, so it also affects your cognitive functions to some extent, especially depending on when you got diagnosed.
Right.
So there are times I'll hang. Like I'll be
for a few minutes and it's just happening.
No, and it won't come back.
Right.
Like I'll have to be like, what was I saying?
Right.
You know? So those are some of the things like I like speaking to people about. And initially when I started doing interviews, I used to get so embarrassed and I'm like, this thing is happening.
Anxiety comes in.
Then I reached a point I was like, no. People need to actually see the actual thing of how this thing actually happens. So during the interview, if you see me hanging.
Yes, of course, I'll come through.
Please,
I'll come
just,
through for you.
Yes.
Of course, and now I have to throw it to Paul. Herein comes sustainable health programs in the workplace. Safaricom is a very homegrown company. A lot of people do want to work with Safaricom. Do you feel like maybe you have a sustainable or a workable program around mental health?
I would say yes.
Yes.
And although, again, there's room to grow and make it even better.
Right.
We start with our purpose. And we believe our purpose is to transform lives.
Right.
And within that, we talk of purpose, people before profit.
Right.
In there is the bit about who are you leaving behind? Because there are times when you can, in the process of making money, doing everything else, there's that one person you may be leaving behind. So what we did was we came up with an employee assistance program.
Okay.
And in that program, or the framework was, first, it has to be led from the top in terms of leadership, sponsorship has to be real. You break it down into, you have a department or a unit that is purely looking at our health, safety, and well-being.
Right.
HSW. with a senior manager in charge of that area. And how we plow it is where we then say, what are some of those things that will make our people thrive?
Right.
We came up with a Thrive program, and it's about mind, which is about focus, body, which is about how do you just keep healthy,
Right.
heart, which is about relationships,
Right.
and soul, which is about just purpose and your being grounded. Now, out of that, we said, in fact, during COVID, that was even much bigger one,
Right.
because we would have a weekly check-in, and we'll ask people, how are you feeling? We had 4 questions. How are you feeling? Second was, how enabled are you? Because people are working from home predominantly.
Right.
There was something about how collaborative are you with other colleagues?
Right.
And there was something about how are you delivering on your commitments? And in there, we started seeing people say 3 things. One, you see, I'm anxious.
Right.
And that was COVID, because they were anxious about their health. Will this thing hit the family? What if? A few will say, I'm stressed out.
Right.
And in spite of all this anxiety I have targets to meet. And rarely will you hear anybody say, I'm depressed. But the first 2 were the ones that you'll see people saying, I'm anxious.
Right.
And then we started asking, so what can we do differently to make you feel at home? It is as personal as it gets. And what we did was we've trained over 500 of our staff to be peer counselors.
Right.
Because that's the first line of defense, where you can monitor and say, Paul isn't behaving the same way he has been. Is there something?
Right.
Or even just check in and say, how are you doing? And then we have a 24/7 psychosocial support system. So we have professional counselors who work with our people anonymously. And we've impressed on the need, I don't need to know who is seeking any services as an HR lead. So I think that whole framework was big. But we also moved to the line manager. And the first line of stress sometimes will come with the targets. And it's a case of saying, how do you ensure that you work with your people and you're more empathetic? Of course, the support that comes in.
Right.
And that has become one of those things that we say, it has to be an integrated program where you do that. That said, it's also where we encourage our people to talk about it.
Right.
And especially where leaders come in and say, I'm not okay.
Right.
That has been the biggest piece, where you start role modeling the I'm not okay. Because when you ask, how are you today? And you say, I'm fine.
I'm alive.
And I'm alive.
Yes.
And then we smile through it.
Right.
But deep, people are hurting, people have financial issues, they have relationship issues, they have health issues, they have grief. So we've allowed people to be, and that is a tough journey to go.
Right, and of course this plays a part in ensuring that maybe mental health is a priority for a lot of businesses, but typically Kenyan businesses often prioritize profit over people, which is a conversation we're going to be having as we continue with this interview. But first, let's take a look at a clip so that we can digest things from a different perspective.
Work in a safe, secure, and healthy environment. That's very important. And that includes ensuring that your workers are not working in a place that is promoting a stressful existence. So yes, there are adequate laws in this country. We don't need any more to ensure that the worker is working in a healthy environment.
Right. And of course, profit over people, Oriemi. And maybe he was talking about the responsibility of employers in ensuring that the people who are working for them are doing well. Do you believe that in Kenya there should be, largely even, when we look at all businesses, do you believe that there should be a culture shift in this perspective?
Yes, definitely. There really needs to be a big culture shift.
Right.
But then for me, I believe that it can only begin out of the workplace.
Right.
Now, I say this why. If I came and sat down with you and I told you, this is what depression is, this is how it goes, this is what happens.
Right.
Again, I go and tell him. So you see, while you're here, you will pick some information that you can maybe share with your managers.
Right.
He can pick some information, share with the managers. So I think the first thing is, and I know we are always saying the government should step in, the government should step in.
Right.
There are very many mental health organizations, even that I work with and have partnered with. But there needs to be also just the awareness, but when someone is not thinking of profit.
Right.
Yeah, you understand what I mean?
Right.
Because you see, if you go to speak to them in an office, them in their head, they're like, I need to see my numbers. I need to see my numbers. But if you can provide an environment where now these senior managers can just interact, get to understand the human part of these conditions, then that is when now you will find them now going to implement it.
Right.
So I think we are very far, but I think there are also quite a number of companies that are putting the employee assistance programs in place, especially since COVID. But then one thing I found is that people are afraid of using the resources that have been provided by the organization.
Right.
And I'm actually also curious to know like how the uptake was on the Safaricom side of things. Yeah, because I get that a lot, like I cannot speak to these people.
Right.
But we really have a long way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, Paul, now you are the Chief Human Resource Officer. A lot of people watching this might say, you know, usually those are the cops of the institution. Those are the people who are supposed to keep us in line. Do you feel like maybe your job has been lost in translation? And do you believe that there should be adjustments that should be made to this effect?
It's a good question.
Right.
And I remind everybody in HR that the first thing is human.
Right.
And humanness is what brings in. Yesterday we had a forum where Safaricom, SIGNET, and other players of 50 organizations came through.
Right.
And the first thing is the why. Context is everything.
Right.
Why is focusing on well-being, employee well-being, critical for business sustainability?
Right.
And once you get that right, then it starts coming in to say, actually, this is not a nice to do, nice to have.
Right.
One is a business imperative. It drives sustainable business. And secondly, it's a human right. And the third and most importantly, when you talk of well-being, it is not a preserve of certain grades or certain levels. It can start from the very top, including HR. So if it matters anxiety, people being stressed out, people not being in a space where they feel balanced, that's something that runs across the entire organization. And I think as part of the employee value proposition, an organization that cares is also a talent magnet.
Right.
It also creates productivity.
Right.
It drives real business performance in the long term. And that has been proven. And therefore, when you do this, you will find you reduce the cost of absenteeism, illnesses, people will have sick-offs. So focusing on well-being, especially the whole bit of the mind, is something that is as important as any other illnesses that are in the workplace. And I think that's the great thing that ILO has said.
Right.
Mental well-being is a condition like any other that one can have.
Right, and mental well-being is a part of well-being in general. And of course, we're talking about, you know, changing the perspective, not profit-based, but person-based. Human resource is about humans, right? And shifting the narrative from being a cop. And you know what? I will actually remind you of something. Let's look at the second clip so that we see the gravity of this matter.
1 out of 4 people will have a mental health condition. The question is it you? Or is it me?
Become quite a serious issue. So we continue to do these surveys so that we can understand and advise organizations on maybe areas that they could focus so that they can be able to look after the well-being of their employees in a better way with data-driven interventions instead of just sort of thumbsuck decision on what it is that we would want to do in terms of wellness programs.
Essentially ensuring that it's more data-driven. She said we don't want thumbsuck approaches when it comes to solutions. And maybe I will throw it to you, Warimi. Do you feel like Kenya's, you know, work program in general, especially in working environments, is in any way acknowledging that 1 out of 4 people they're not doing well mentally?
Okay, sorry, just ask me that question again.
1 out of 4 people, the situation that Paul was telling us is 1 out of 4 people are not doing well, especially when it comes to company policies, especially when it comes to ensuring that people are productive. Do you believe that in pushing productivity, it should be acknowledged?
Yes, it definitely. I think I normally find speaking about workplace mental health quite a very delicate and complicated thing because there are so many dynamics towards it.
Right.
And also, each company has now their own culture, right? And I think that probably I will just go back to my other point of what I was saying, that there needs to be the human aspect of it, you know? And I think also something else that you'll find that probably these systems are not being put into place, and probably not, is also, as they say, everyone has their own issues.
Right.
Everyone is going through something, you know? So maybe your manager is there stressed because of home.
Right.
Then there are numbers, and then there's a team.
Right.
And he wants to see you performing. Now, this person, as it were already, his mental health is not in a good place.
Right.
Because of what's going on around him. So what will he do? He'll come and bring it to the office, which will eventually now also affect someone else who is now going through that.
Now
and
projecting.
Yes, they are projecting, you know. And I think I'll still just bring it back to employers, encouraging employers to focus on the human aspect of things.
Right.
You know, that is the most important. The human aspect, understanding why is this person like this? You know, like you can find so-and-so was such a top performer. Nowadays they're late to work. Maybe they're not dressing well. They are not talking in meetings. But then now what will happen? Within the office, it will be, oh, he's like this.
Right.
Oh, he's like that.
The whispers.
The whispers, and then someone will go and whisper to the manager, I think this and that, you know. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done culturally, and then also bring in the aspect of the human part of it.
Right.
And this is not only for management, but also for staff. Extend grace to each other.
Right.
And actually one of the things that I say, if you have a stressful workplace, for example, you be the change.
Right.
Yeah. So instead of me seeing someone going through something and I come and talk to you about it and we're gossiping about it,
Right.
why can't I be the change? Because maybe management are not going to change tomorrow. They're not going to change tomorrow. But me as Wareme, what can I do to try and help my colleague?
Right.
So again, and usually this statement is used a lot, by bottom up. So sometimes it has to start from bottom.
It's no longer an economic it's a mental health
Yeah,
agenda.
it's a mental health. So bottom up, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I think there's also a lot of that communication, lack of proper communication channels within the organization.
Right.
So I think, yeah, that's basically what I can say in that regard. Yeah,
Right, and of course, most of these small issues, when we look at them, you're talking about fatigue, you're talking about a lack of, motivation. People are waking up in the morning, they don't even want to go there anymore. They usually balloon into anxiety and depression. We go for a very short break, but when we come back, we delve into how mental health issues usually balloon, and then they mess with the productivity and the numbers. Let's take a break. Welcome back to the marketplace. The topic for the night is ensuring mental health practices are upheld in a lot of businesses and how they could be affecting productivity and even numbers. Before we went on the short break, we were talking about the situation in a lot of Kenyan businesses. Yemi. Now let's focus on treatment. A lot of people have, the stigma around seeking treatment when it comes to mental health. You might be having fatigue today, you have anxiety tomorrow, but you don't want to seek treatment. Could you just give us an insight on that?
Okay, yes. So seeking mental health treatment is quite the stigma.
Right.
And yes, it's bad in Kenya, but with my work, I've seen it's actually a global thing.
Right.
And I do understand the fear, because this is something, it's not a broken leg, or it's not like diabetes, which we know about. This is something like in the brain, and everyone thinks any illness that involves the mind, it's you're a crazy person,
right?
But what I usually advise people is that, first of all, when you suspect that you have a mental illness, seek help early. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was diagnosed in 2015, but I later got to find out that I'd actually started getting depressed in 2008.
Right.
And I remember from that 2008, I used to be like, what has changed in me? This is something that has changed. I don't know what it is. I no longer have confidence, low self-esteem, all those things. So you see, from 2008 to 2015, that was a very long time. And then for me now, my body crashed.
Right.
Like I just went crash, body crash, mind crash. I did not know what was going on.
Right.
And based on that experience, I always encourage people, as soon as you suspect you have this thing, please go and seek help. Yeah? Because the first thing is you'll go and see a therapist, and the therapist will tell you, yes, you have depression. But since it's on the early stages, like maybe you're just mildly depressed, all you need is therapy.
Right.
Yeah, for some time, and then you'll be good. Right. But now you see, the longer you wait, the worse you're getting. You're just getting worse,
Right.
So it will get to a point now, you'll have to have the therapy and you'll have to have medication.
Right.
Then you'll find that there are some people who, so mental health medications are also very interesting.
Right.
It's not like going in and getting, I have tonsils, so I'll be given an Augmentin or Amoxil. You'll go in and you're given maybe 1, 2, 3 drugs with different dosages.
Right.
Then you're told, come back and see me after 2 weeks. Then after those 2 weeks, if there has not been any change, maybe they increase dosage, reduce, add another drug. So I always tell my doctor that you people, you psychiatrists, just do trial and error. It's just trial and error, Because like now for me, in my case, it took 6 months for us to finally get stable. So very important, seek help early. That's number one. Therapy is very important. And in fact, they normally say, go for therapy twice a year. We all have a lot that goes on in our lives, know, but we take them out through the wrong channels. Therapy is not scary. It's just that they have sat here, you've sat here. Right. The only difference is that I'll come and tell you about probably an issue that's disturbing me. Then you'll be asking me leading questions. So why do you think that this is? So why do you think, so people think that when people here, you can. So people normally think when you go to a therapist, they will tell you, do 1, 2, 3. No, usually the solutions I've found for myself come from myself, and of course now she adds them.
Right.
So there's a therapy aspect, and then now there's the medication. So based on the fact that I was diagnosed very late, I'm still on medication.
Right.
So I have to take anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and mood stabilizer.
Right.
So that's how my treatment has been. And something also very, very important that people really need to know is that they should never take psychiatric medications over the counter.
Right.
Yeah? Because you see, as I've said, you're put on this drug on 20 mg, this one on 100 mg, this one. So even if you go to the chemist, what dosage are they giving you?
Right.
For how long? Who's going to monitor your process and all that stuff? So yeah, I really like to encourage people, just go and seek help. Just go and sit down with someone. And I usually get this comment a lot, especially from men. Now you want me to go sit down and tell a stranger my issues.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, you don't want to talk to the people in your lives.
Right.
Go and talk to a stranger.
Don't cocoon yourself.
Yeah, go and talk to a stranger. They are trained to talk to you. There's a reason why they are there, So just go speak to them. And it's important to remember, by the time you step out of that office, that therapist has another patient.
Right.
So it's not like they're going to sit and be like, oh my God, Renee, she has it. Like they forget, because people think now they'll be judged.
Right.
So mental health treatment, very important. The earlier you seek treatment, the better it is for you. As I said, like for me in my case, I have unfortunately not been able to hold an 8-to-5 job anymore.
Right.
I've tried running business. I cannot be there 100% because of my health.
Right.
So you see, all these things are affected because of how late I was diagnosed.
Right.
But I also know other people who are holding jobs very well, going to work, looking very healthy, and the reason for that is because of getting treated early and sticking to your treatment.
Right.
Because, and I also had that thing. I still have it. It's kind of understandable when you're going through a difficult time.
Right.
But there are so many times I've tried removing myself from medication, then I fall sick, end up in hospital. Then I'm like, I'll never, ever, ever, ever not take my medication again.
Right.
7 months later, I'm tired.
Yeah, you forget sometimes.
You forget, you know. So I also like to explain to people that try and understand where this person is, right? And not only me, but try and understand where this person is. You're taking medication January to January. And even with those medications, so I needed to add something else based on how severely you are that you're diagnosed when you're depressed.
The level at which
the level that,
yes.
that you are at. Sorry, what did I say before I started?
You said the level at which you're diagnosed. It's important to know that from that you can know the treatment. And
and what exactly that goes on with that.
Right.
So people should not be afraid. And if you feel like you can't take yourself, ask someone to take you.
Right.
And you'd imagine that someone like me who's had this condition for 8 years, when I feel I'm not well and I need to go for therapy, I need to see my psychiatrist, you'd imagine that I'm like, la, la, la. I wake up and I go.
Right.
I won't go. You know? So it'll have to take someone taking me to hospital. And I just can't understand. I'm like, I know I need to go. I have been to a psychiatrist a gazillion times. I have seen therapists. Why I can't go, I don't know. But you see now it's also part of the depression. It's part of,
And of course, these aspects are very important. You got to know that from your personal experience, how exactly you're dealing with that is according to your therapist. And you know, your situation is very singular. But of course, there could be treatments, you know, in a more, not industrial scale per se, but organization scale. Would you say that, Paul, it's important for companies to have, you know, treatment regimens? Does Safaricom have a treatment regimen? A lot of insurances, you know, insurance packages do not have mental health as one of the perks that people could be enjoying. Do you have it as Safaricom?
The answer is yes, we do.
Right.
And to the earlier question, if you look at the provisions from the government right now, you look at it from 3 fronts. First is around prevention, then promotion, and then support. And I think if you look at that, and the point that Wairemi says around detect it early, have it diagnosed early. So it's more of putting in place workplace programs that can help people kind of avoid those moments of the triggers are there, so reduce the triggers. And when they come through, people react differently. Ensure you work with them. So in terms of mental health, that is well-being. We call it mental well-being. That's part of what you can go to a doctor, and it's within the provisions of your medical benefits. Now, what we found, though, is how you start from support groups. So even in the workplace, in our safety terms, we say work safe, home safe. So you go to the work, you're safe, and you go home safe. And that also should include not just the physical safety, but also the mental safety. And therefore is ensuring you have workplace programs that promote health and well-being. Now, what we've seen with the Thrive program that we have activities that help people speak out. Now, the vulnerability of saying, this is my condition, especially the higher it is, the better, is one of the things that we found really helps people kind of calm down and say, I'm not the only one. And we had this program that we said it was okay to not be okay. And people are like, but what will you do when you know that I'm not okay?
Exactly.
and that was a big one, because we said, we'll work with you. And of course, people will say, I will test it. But we said, if you're not comfortable opening up to somebody, And we are like, look for a buddy in the workplace. Look for your line manager if you can speak to your line manager. Reach out to health and well-being team in HR. Reach out to me. Reach out to the CEO.
Right.
Reach out to somebody. And that culture, I think we talked about that earlier on. If you bring a culture where people can be safe, it's a safe space for people to speak.
Right.
We saw that happening. The one or two things that came out was, Paul, I see people looking at me differently because I said, this is how I feel.
Right.
And we were like, we had to talk in public and say, if somebody said I'm anxious, it is okay to be anxious.
That's true.
And maybe that's the only person, that person may be better than you who hasn't said you're anxious. So I think that whole bit of building confidentiality, building a support mechanism, and then providing a very confidential support mechanism where somebody can do it outside of the workplace is something that we found really useful.
Right.
And as Waireme said, the earlier it comes, the better, and somebody lives a normal life.
Right.
You take your medication and you live a normal life. That is the piece about demystifying mental well-being, and not making it like it's a death sentence. There are other illnesses that come through and they're managed. There are professionals who do that. And I think that is the whole bit of, let's encourage our people to come out and say, I'm not okay.
Right.
We found the boy child.
Actually, I was coming to that because when you talk about the whole demystification aspect, there's also, you know, the African culture, the Kenyan culture, and, you know, as a man, kuwa mwanaume, you know, handle your business.
You're absolutely
So how about that, Paul?
So we have forums, different forums. So we discovered we can do the weekly sessions, which we do on Thursdays, and sometimes Wednesdays morning, Thursdays 3 to 4. And we got people to talk about it. And we brought actually external speakers who come and say, this is me, this is what I'm going through.
Right.
What we found as the biggest barrier was the cultural piece. Man up, chin up.
Right.
So you can't just,
handle
man up. What's your chin up is more like walk with your head high.
Right.
Don't come here looking like
Don't sulk.
Don't sulk.
Right.
And it's like you are the man of the household. When we were growing up, there was this joke that my sisters would cry at the slightest pinch. I could be beaten and I'm told a man doesn't cry. And I think that's part of the stereotypes that need to be managed.
Right.
Most importantly, is to say, if you're not okay, it doesn't matter whether you're male, female. It doesn't matter the level of the organization. Because, and this is the part I want to demystify.
Right.
Mental well-being is not about the lowest people in the organization. It's everybody. And the moment you realize that, anxiety, stress, depression, based on the triggers that came through, is one of those things that we did. And then we brought men together and they talked about it. And we discovered some of the things that are pressurizing people from well-being, mental well-being, is around financial safety. There's something around relationships.
Yes.
There's also physical trauma, early childhood experiences. So people deal with different things differently. The worst thing is things that have been bottled up over time. Because the more you bottle them up, then there's that straw that breaks the camel's back.
Right.
And that is the point that we try to do. Remember the bit about prevention, promotion, and support.
Right. And Paul, for a lot of businesses or business owners that are watching this and human resource professionals that are watching this, all they can think is, what about my productivity? Would you say then that productivity comes from mental well-being afterwards, and this triggers in the numbers and brings in, you know, the profits?
Without a doubt. A thriving workforce is a thriving business and a sustainable business.
Right.
And they thrive about mind, body, passive aggression. And if you go to some of these sports, you find the first thing you do is just refocus.
Right.
So when you have people who are focused on the mission, then you find they bring out their best.
Right. And Wairemi, Paul has brought up something very interesting. He's talked about bottling your emotions and, you know, you might not know what exactly is triggering you. What would you say is the importance of knowing what your triggers are so that you can work on improvement? And how can a person say right now, I know I am anxious, or I know I feel some sort of anxiety within me when I'm in certain situations. How is it important for me to find my specific triggers? And who is the person who's going to tell me what my triggers are?
Okay, so Definitely the first thing would be the therapy that I spoke about. So you'll have that interaction with your therapist. And then the second thing is also mindfulness.
Right.
Slowing down. You know, it's something that we don't do. It's just, I guess, inherent in us, you know, just moving.
Right.
And life is so tough. But people need to now sometimes just take a step back and find out, okay, what could be causing me this?
Right.
You might not find the solution immediately, you know, but you might be like, okay, I need to start figuring out. So people need to live more mindfully. People need to live more consciously and consciously about themselves, you know, because we're always, even parents, it's the children, it's this, it's the teachers, it's this, it's what, you know. But as a person, just slow down, figure out what are the triggers, what is getting me here. So you see, of course, there's what probably was the root cause. Maybe it started at childhood, maybe it started in your marriage, maybe it started whatever.
Right.
So once you identify now that root cause, so now that's when now you start working on that. Like, what beliefs did I create maybe when something happened to me as a child, you know? But you see, by the time you're getting to identify that, it needs to take work from you.
Right.
So it's always work from you. And we talked about treatment earlier. Something else that's also very important is self-care.
Right.
Self-care is very important. Working out, whether you like painting, whether you like knitting, whatever, listening to music, going for a massage, you know, all those things.
Going on vacation.
And going on vacation. Yes. And I would like to encourage some, especially now it's in December.
Right.
And I know how us ladies operate.
Exactly.
Maybe when you're single, when you're single, you don't want to go anywhere because you don't have anyone. But usually I'm like, pack your bags, get onto a flight, go to the beach, go with a book, just take time and just relax.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
And I think also the thing is also we have not been taught how to do things also on our own and for ourselves. So we never get to understand triggers and what has caused and all those things. Now, I'd also like to bring up something else very important, especially now when it comes to, now for the mental health aspect.
Right.
There are the triggers that are very obvious. So like for me, I know my triggers. I know if this happens, that will trigger me. If this happens, that will trigger me.
Right.
But there are those triggers that come and you don't know, you don't realize it. Yeah. Let me just give a quick story. The organization I was working for was a communications firm, and we used to sell routers. So there was this. Now this is after I've left and all those things.
Right.
So I'm at home. I'm fine. I've been okay. Then after 3 days, I started feeling sick, and I'm like, what's going on? Why am I getting into a depression? What is happening?
Right.
So I didn't understand, and I went into the relapse. Then a few days later, now I was watching a series. I didn't see, so on that time I was watching a series. So a few days later, now I went back I was continuing now to watch the series. And then now in the series, I saw the router and the label of the company.
Ah, okay.
So then in my head, I was like, that was the trigger. Because I saw the router, I started thinking about my last job. I started thinking about where I would be right now based on where I was.
Right.
You know, I started thinking about all these things. So they just slowly, I mean, it just affected me subconsciously.
Right.
So that was the only way. So sometimes identifying triggers, they're the obvious ones, and they're those ones that just creep up on you and you don't know.
Right.
But you see now, at least now this one I'm aware, I'm like, okay, fine. Seeing something could probably trigger me.
Right.
So it's not a one thing of, and then you know what happens sometimes when I tell people I'm in a relapse, their first question is what triggered it?
Right.
Like,
it's not
right
how it
now,
works.
I don't know. I just need to get better, and that's not how it works. Like it's not usually 1 + 1 because these conditions are very complex. The journey is also very complex.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I can say.
Right, and getting to the root cause you're saying, Remy, is very important.
Yes.
So you can identify what exactly the problem was, and then you can work on a solution.
Yeah.
Right. And Paul, when it comes to managing businesses and managing human resource, a person who has a business right now watching this might be thinking, my employees might be in jeopardy. How exactly am I going to remedy this particular situation? What would you say are the first steps to getting towards, the root cause of a bad company culture and remedying it?
I think the one thing that you have to do is just listen to your employees.
Right.
Provide a forum where people can speak out. provide a culture is culture and leadership.
Right.
And daily, actually, just ask the question, how are you? And don't stop at that.
Right.
Ask, how are you really? And when you ask the question, don't ask as a matter of ticking the box. Ask it and just watch.
Connect
and
with
listen
people.
and
Right.
connect. And there's something about level 3 listening where sometimes people will say something. That's level 1. You'll hear what they say. But you can also listen level 2, which is the emotion they have. And they could either be higher or lower or just flat.
Right.
But there's something about how the feeling that you get out of what they do. And you'll be surprised at how just saying, when you speak this is a sense I have. Checking in on one another is the first thing that you can do to ask people, are you okay?
Right.
And when you ask that question, please wait for an answer and do something with it. The second piece is, and I smile when you talked about leave.
Right.
Because when Africans take leave, they take it to go and work. You
Right.
start doing stuff.
Yes.
And you rarely have time to just have time for yourself and do nothing. It is okay to do nothing.
Yes.
And it's not doing nothing. You are recharging, you are rebooting.
Right.
And the other piece that is even more important is, when do you reach a point when you listen to your body?
Right.
So encouraging people to say, there's a point where you must avoid burnout. Targets will come and go. Tomorrow will be another day. But you need to listen to yourself and say, how do I just do a timeout on myself? And have a time for yourself. You can't fix the masks of others
Right.
before you fix yours, including your own family. So if you can't ensure that you are in a good space, as a mother, as a father, as a child, you'll find you actually become a liability to that family.
Right.
So just a moment for yourself will be important.
Right. And Paul, as we start to conclude this conversation, as scintillating as it has been, maybe an employee who's watching this right now is thinking, how do I make my boss listen? I feel like I'm going through this entire process. I feel alone. I'm not motivated. How exactly do I make my boss listen and, make solutions for me at the workplace?
It's a good question, and sometimes there's no one straight answer.
Right.
You could have, this is what has worked in Safaricom, where people come into buddy groups. And within those buddy groups, people can, in a safe environment, say, talk about something. There's this joke that I'm asking a question for somebody,
Right.
on behalf of somebody else. You can frame it like, this is what is happening. How do we ensure that we work with our people?
Right.
But from an HR point of view, I think workplace employee assistance program is something that you must prioritize,
Right.
because that becomes the glue
Right.
and the catalyst to a sustainable organization.
Right. And you're saying assessment,
Yeah.
self-assessment, organizational assessment. And Wairemi, when it comes to self-assessment, a lot of people who are watching this have heard your journey, they've heard what you've been going through and how you've dealt with it. What would you then recommend they would do now that I am realizing that I have, an issue that should be addressed? What should I do?
Okay, so the first thing is slow down fast. Yeah? Don't ignore what you're feeling. Because what happens is, I'm feeling this way, maybe if I keep busy, I will be okay, So I would say the first thing is acknowledge that you have this thing. Second of all, just find out what the treatment options are out there. What is comfortable for you, what is not comfortable for you.
Right.
So it's quite the process. And also another thing also why I speak about my journey is because there was so much confusion at the beginning.
Right.
We've talked about depression and anxiety. I went in, I was told, in fact, my first psychiatrist was Frank Jenga.
Right.
I was just told, take this, you have depression, you have anxiety. So it took me at least 4 years to be able to understand the differences between the two conditions.
Right.
So I'd also like to encourage people is that there's a lot of information out there. Read about mental health, get to understand what it's all about, find out how your people are, all those things. So for me, and also self-care, something else now. What people tend to do is that you're like, he goes to the gym 5 days a week.
Right.
Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And you'll just find yourself. So you need to find something that works for you. So like for me, what works for me is walking, and I walk a lot.
Right.
I do my walks and stuff like that. And unfortunately, okay, the thing also with mental illnesses is that you'll find that they will prevent you from doing that thing that you're supposed to be doing to help you.
Right.
You see, like the walking is supposed to help me get better from the depression and the anxiety. Right. But then I go for my walk, I get sick, I have to take an Uber back home.
Right.
So I'd also want to encourage people, self-care, choose something that works for you, not what is working for someone else, right?
Right.
If you fail, if you're finding yourself like kind of like maybe you've been diagnosed and you feel like you're always falling sick and you're always doing that, it's important for that person to remember it's not your fault. It's an illness. It's not your fault. It's an illness, and that's the nature of the illness. Yeah?
Right.
So that's basically
right, and that is the parting shot of Wairemi. We were talking about mental health. Why is it so important to ensure that your well-being, your mental well-being is at par with maybe even your physical well-being? How does this mess with your productivity? How does this mess with the productivity of your entire company? And what does this mean for the profits and the margins? We're talking about the margins and the profits, the baselines. But how important is it to have your mind where your body is? This has been the marketplace. That has been our topic. I'm sure you've learned a lot. I have learned a lot. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Hibak Said. Have yourselves a lovely night.